All right, welcome everyone to our July work session. We do have quite a few items on the agenda to get through tonight. Not all of them will carry over. Joshua was actually laughing at himself. He decided to put some items on tonight, but they're all good things to talk about and discuss. And so I will just start with the first item, which is listed under awards and presentations. It actually should be under new business. That was just a mistake. And what it is Georgia City Solutions has a program that's focused on placemaking around youth councils, and we have received a grant from them for the amount of $500. And so this resolution needs to be done in order for us to accept that $500 in grant money to go towards the youth council. And so it seems like a lot of effort to do for $500, but I know it'll go a long way towards helping the youth council. And so again, that should be probably number one under new business, and I know that Jane will move that there for our meeting next Monday. Any questions about that? Yes, sir.
So is that for existing project that they've been doing? It's a new project? Does it obligate us to any other funds or anything else?
No,
it's
not
just,
at all.
Okay.
It's pretty open-ended. I think,
Right.
honestly, they would like to use it towards some of the work that they've been doing at the future park, Champion Tree Park, but it doesn't obligate us towards anything. It's just a grant that goes to the youth council. Thank you for the question. Anybody else have a question about it? Okay. All right. We will move on to new business. And it is my understanding that Kaipo is not quite ready on the plumbing code amendment. I think he's working with Frank maybe to make some modifications or clarifications to that. And so not ready for this month, but maybe ready for August, Kaipo. And is everybody okay with just passing on that one, and we can take it up at a later point in time?
Just a question on that. So when we discussed it previously, it sounded like we didn't have a lot of options in terms of what we can do, right? It's being passed down to us and says, pass this or you lose your qualified government status, right? So is the delay just in terms of fitting what they have into the existing code work, or do we actually have any options there that I wasn't aware of, or kind of what's
Frank is
the
kind
basis?
of looking like he's ready to answer that.
So the description was correct, Councilmember Perkle. The city really doesn't have particular options with this. It's being mandated because the city is part of the Metropolitan North Georgia Water Planning District. The delay is to fit it into the city's code of ordinances, that rather than just adopting it, we actually need to plug it into our code. And so Kaipo and I need to work on coordinating a couple of changes, I think, in order to do that. And so that's the delay.
Thank you for the question, Gary. Thank you, Frank. Any other questions, comments on that item? All right, next we'll move on to the solid waste contract amendment. Troy, that is yours.
Thank you. At our April meeting and a couple of other meetings this year, we talked a little bit about some of the changes we wanted to see in the solid waste and recycling contract. Some of those were at a cost that I think we did not want to entertain. Some of the changes included going to a weekly recycling schedule from a biweekly schedule, looking at a senior discount, volume-based billing, and a few other options that we wanted to discuss, including maybe adjusting franchise fees to offset the additional work that we were wanting to change in the contract. The response from Waste Management was not exactly what we were looking for, so we did look at the possibility of, I think it was Councilmember Page's request to look at locking in a rate that would help protect our customers, their customers from the annual adjustments and the effect of inflation. Give me one moment here. Okay, well, this is my solution to that problem. So we looked at locking in the rate of $19.66 a month until October of 2026. That's about 3 years, and keeps it steady for that length of time. The same services that are currently provided by Waste Management, they've agreed to that. With the second bullet point, which is to extend the contract term until October 2029, that basically extends it to a full 5 years. No other terms are changing in it as far as our ability to terminate with 120 days notice of the annual renewal date, which is November 1. So we still have the same options to go through this exercise should we choose to in the next few years, or we can stick with our flat $19.66 a month. And then we did also ask that they add Goldmine Park and make a change to the City Hall dumpster size to accommodate some of the changes that we've gone through recently. So with the work that we've put together for this, we're recommending approving this contract amendment with those terms.
All right, thank you, Troy. Any questions, comments from City Council?
I'll go ahead and make some comments since I'm the one that started all this. The lock-in rate does sound good. I'm a little disappointed because I would have liked to have seen, okay, this would be the rate per month with the same exact plan, basically, which is still the every other week recycling. And this would be the cost if we gave you weekly recycling. So I'm a little disappointed that they didn't offer a price with weekly recycling, because that was one of the big things we asked for. And we said, okay, you don't have to give us a senior discount. And I know that with the last terms, we said, no, don't raise the commercial rates. But I still think they could have lowered the franchise fees. And of course, there's nothing in here, the franchise fees would be the same. So I'm just a little disappointed that there's no weekly recycling and the franchise fees are the same. The biggest advantage is the locked-in rate. So I don't know what everybody else thinks. I'd like to know what the other council members think.
Thank you, Meg. Josh?
Yeah, sure. First, thank you, Troy, and your team for going to bat for us several times for a couple months now. Appreciate that. I echo Councilmember Avery's things. You know, I'm disappointed that they didn't want to come to the table to do anything else or kind of change that. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, for the next 3 years, a locked-in rate of $19.66, divide that out 52 weeks, that's $4.54 a week for someone to come pick up your trash. So I think we need to take that win as it stands right now and call it a day. Unfortunately, especially keeping $4.54 a week for the next 3 years is, that's impressive. I'm surprised they wanted to come to the table for 3 years. So that's my 2 cents about it. So appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Josh. Any other comments? Yes, ma'am, of course.
I think one of the things that really hurts our city as far as waste management is we have so much residential. Other cities that offer waste management or another company, they have the advantage of they're more spread out. There's more in the city limits, and like Norcross and Peachtree Corners that have waste management, one of their biggest advantages is all the commercial they have. And we have so much residential as far as home, subdivision, townhomes, apartments. And I think this is a big wake-up call to us. Also, we need to look and see where we can increase the commercial, and not just a building here and there, but this is a wake-up call to us to look into where can we put an office park what can we do to offset the cost? And commercial will carry a lot of weight with that. And I know we're limited by the size. As I say, we're not the same size as some of the other cities as far as in the city limits. But I think that that's a goal that we need to work toward as far as, what can we do to improve the service and to have more commercial? And let's look at, where can we do this? And, unfortunately, okay, we should have had Lidl, and they're not there yet. And there are a couple of other commercial developments that haven't broken ground yet. And, once everything is approved and signed off, it's not like we can tell Lidl, get your act together and get that building built. That's their property. But I really think it's important that we need to look at areas where we can put office parks and increase our commercial. I really wish, I agree with Councilmember Page. The lock-in rate is good. I think that's generous. But I just wish it had been tweaked just a little bit more. So that's my final comment.
Meg, thank you. And while I appreciate your opinion, I'm not really sure if there's a connection between commercial properties and waste management, but thank you for the comments. Apartments are actually treated as commercial, so this definitely not had an impact on waste management at all, and it certainly hadn't had an impact on the rates because we're locking in the rate that we've had for a while. So appreciate everybody's comments. Any other comments or questions regarding it? Okay, we will move on. Next is the Gary Perkle Park Playground resurfacing contract, and that is Troy as well.
Thank you. This one is really an operational maintenance item that came to us because of the dollar amount. I think we had it budgeted for about $100,000 or less. So we've gotten 14 years of life out of the playground surface under the pavilion at Gary Perkle Park. We've made a few repairs over that time period, but the entire thing needs to be replaced at this point. Received quotes from TerraSafe, Pro Playgrounds, Echo Play Structures to provide I'm going to call it a poured-in-place rubberized surface like you see on the right of the screen. The lowest price was provided by TerraSafe. Our staff validated and checked references and determined that TerraSafe was a suitable vendor to replace the surface at the park. They did provide the lowest cost as well of $125,670.99. The other quotes were Pro Playground with a price of $138,599, and then Echo Play Structures, $196,509. Staff is recommending awarding the project to TerraSafe.
Thank you, Troy. Any questions? Troy?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
So I certainly don't mind replacing the playground surface, and I guess 14 years is a good period out of it. But is it necessary to rip it all out, or can you go on top and provide extra cushioning there?
I asked that question, but there's a drainage layer under it, and I think the contractor is not going to warranty the installation without knowing what's under it.
Okay.
That, and I just think it provides a more certain and even application if we can do it on a new subgrade. Andy can jump in and chime in if you want.
The nice thing about this as well is subgrade underneath the hard roof structure should still be good. No work necessary for the bonded rubber that we had in there 2010, patched it, I don't know, past the. They won't just go over the top with.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Andy, any other questions? Yes?
I would just like to know, has TerraSafe done any other work in playgrounds in Gwinnett County?
We did Purple Park originally. They also have, I believe they did the work for us at E.E. Robinson as well. Don't quote me on that because it was through a different contractor, but I think it was the same install company. And then they have done several different works throughout the whole North Georgia area.
So they know Geary Pirkle Park fairly well then, if they're the original. Got it.
The company who comes in and does all the patchwork for us as well, they have trucks.
Okay, sounds good. All right, any other questions or comments? Yes, Josh?
What is expected timeline completion, and then is downtime, is that a huge concern?
Downtime is 5 to 7 days.
Okay,
Don't have to worry about weather
sure.
because it's under our structures. So that's it.
Do we have expected timeline for completion once the contract's awarded?
I don't know.
Sure.
All I can say is, once it's awarded, go out, and I'm hoping that not far off.
Okay.
We
Thank
can
you.
update you for next week.
I got one more, Brandon.
Yes, sir. Gary?
So in terms of time frame on there, I don't know how soon they could get started, but I would suggest maybe delaying it till school starts so they can, because there's going to be a lot less use once that happens, and use it till summer happens. Yeah, but it takes away,
There's nothing, not a whole lot going on that show up that
okay.
sometimes over anyways. When school starts and soccer season starts back up, it's so crowded, I
Okay.
prefer to already have it.
All right, good enough.
One thing I may have mentioned in the memo that I didn't mention here is we do have a couple pieces of play equipment that are closed because of the surface underneath it. So the sooner we do it, the more functional the entire playground will be.
Thank you. I was going to ask that. I have received a couple of messages over the last week or so about the tape, I guess. So that explains it. Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? And I know when we're ready, it'll be communicated to the community, and we'll do the best we can to reach out to everybody about it. So, all right, next we're going to move on to the CDBG Program Urban County Qualification Cooperation Agreement, and that's Paul.
Thank you. We've received a letter from Gwinnett County, which is defined under the rules of the Department of Housing and Urban Development as an urban county for the purposes of Community Development Block Grant Program, a home program, and emergency services grants. The rest of the state gets their money through Department of Community Affairs under the Small Cities Program. For years, we've participated with Gwinnett County. And every 3 years, this agreement needs to be refreshed and to authorize the mayor to sign and execute the cooperation participation agreement with Gwinnett County. We receive our CDBG funds from Gwinnett County. They get it directly from HUD. We don't get a lot, but it's still funds that we can put to good use. Otherwise, if we opted not to participate and execute this, we would be eligible to apply to the Department of Community Affairs, but I don't think we'd be very competitive for the purposes of statewide competition. So my recommendation is that we continue this as we've done for the last 12, 15 years, participating with Gwinnett County as the urban county. They take care of all the grant paperwork. We don't have to worry about that, other than giving our expenditure reports and making sure that it's used for the purposes of the national objectives, which is principally to benefit low to moderate income people.
That's correct, and they staff and fund the programs. They do the consolidated plan, which is required for the funds to be received. And they also have an affordable housing program. And although we've never had any projects in the past, there is the potential there for us in the future. So thank you. I actually received this, and so I did a lot of research over it on the weekend just because I want to understand how it works. But any questions or of Paul or comments? All right, we will move on to Joshua's items. And we'll take up the first one. That's the current budget timeline versus code.
Sure.
Josh.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start by looking over Article 6, Section 624 out of our code and charter, submission of the operating budget to the city council, and I'm just going to read the first two sentences here. It says, on or before a date fixed by the council, but not later than 90 days prior to the beginning of each fiscal year, the city manager shall submit to the council a proposed operating budget for the ensuing fiscal year. So far, this requirement normally does not happen in October due to just various staffing reasons and forecasting issues and a lot of things that we do not realize as a city until end of November, early December in terms of expenditures. I would like us to kind of chat up here, consider us amending the code to match reality of what actually occurs in our city. I think that's important of whatever that date is, if it's in the charter, if it's in our code, that we abide by whatever is in our charter. So if it is a date that we fix of November 15th every year, then November 15th is a date. If it's December 1st, December 1st is a date, and that's the date that the council, this council, and hopefully councils in the future expect the budget to be by. So it's not really a floating date out there. I guess I'll defer to Paul to speak to any other timeline issues or anything that you could see budget-wise, but other than that, kind of open conversation, discussion regarding that.
Sounds good. Paul, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, we do our own property taxes now, and we're doing that during the August and September time before we send it out. And we do a deep dive every year into all of our revenue sources and all of our expenditure line items as a team, Troy, Cindy, and myself, and as well as our managers. And so having the latest data is always important in projecting what the budget's going to look like. And so it has been practiced ever since I've been here, and it was practiced before that as well, that the budget was not adopted until December. If you wanted to leave it the way it is, then we just have to back up everything and start in the summertime with working on revenue sources and the like. I do understand Josh's desire to have reality match our code or our code match reality. And we'd prefer having it adopted by the council in December.
Thank you to both of you, yeah. And I'll start and then I'll open it up to council members. But I agree with Josh. I mean, for as long as I've been around, we've done it in November or December. Maybe it's been December all the time. I just don't recall, to be honest with you. And I've even seen an example in the past where it was adopted in January. So yeah, consistency is good. Any other comments, thoughts, Taylor?
I think what we're talking about is two different things, adoption versus presentation, because I think the code that Josh is reading is presentation to council at that 90-day mark versus adoption, which is required prior to January 1, or by January 1. So I think typically, since I've been on council, we usually get the budget sometime in mid to late November. So maybe just if we want to do this, 'cause I agree, our charter should match reality. To me, I think a date sometime between November 15th and December 1, because we're going to eventually adopt it in December. That's the reality of it. By having it at least to the final budget. We talk about the budget many times with you all prior to that, but the final budget that's available for the public to review sometime in mid-November or by December 1, certainly at the latest, because that would be when our potentially first city council meeting in December would be. So, but I would defer to staff sometime in that range, which would be acceptable, mid-November to December 1. Obviously, earlier would be better, but that's also something that you all have to deal with, the reality of that, especially if we're going to put it in code and make that change. The expectation then has been set, even though we haven't had one for a while. So that'd be my only comments, is sometime in mid-November prior to December 1st would be my recommendation for that final presentation of the budget for the public to review in particular.
All right, Gary? Yes, sir.
So I agree with what Taylor was saying about the separation of the adoption and the presentation. I would somewhat go in the opposite direction. I think the initial presentation should be in October, which gives us a chance to look at it, have discussion, suggest changes or whatever we want to do. Adoption, again, I agree, that should probably be at the December meeting. But I think the earlier it's presented, the more it gives input to everybody on the council plus the public to look at it and see what's there and see if it, reflects the directions we want to go in and suggest whatever changes might be necessary. So I think the sooner we get it, the better.
Yes, Taylor?
I agree with Gary on that. I think maybe something that you all, as staff, could consider as a preliminary budget, a very high level, which is what we adopt at anyways at the department level. We know that you all hone in onto the particulars, but maybe more of a high-level budget presentation at the department level in October, or if we have to do a special call meeting in October because it's not quite ready at the 1st of October, maybe a high-level, department-level budgeting, so we have an idea of where we're going with the budget for the following year. That might be a way to, I don't know if that necessarily is in line with what our charter says, which is really kind of the presentation of the budget to city council. I don't know what, I'd have to defer to Frank and the legal team on what actually meets that, but perhaps we can give some more flexibility in that date, and then maybe clarify what that actually means as far as a preliminary budget number.
Go ahead, Paul.
With your permission, let me take a look at, Cindy's on vacation this week, but I still can give her a call and talk. I can just hear the waves in the background.
I'm just giving
But
you,
just to see what, how she is, if we back it up where we want to present even a high-level budget, because if you get the high-level budget, we've already got we've already got the detail, most of the time. And if it's October 15th or November 1st, whatever is earlier, that gives you more time, that's the desired outcome here. So just let me take a look at we have a budget schedule that we used internally.
yeah.
And what the staff instructions we sent out. And that each one of them build it from that point up until it comes to the council for adoption in December. If we still do that, we could probably get the 15th or November 1st would be, I think, a reasonable period of time.
And I would just encourage you to maybe allow Cindy to have her vacation, because I don't think there's any urgency on this. We were just having a discussion about it, and maybe there's a future thing that we need to do in order to change the timeline, and probably
I have to change my personality. I've talked about it a few times.
we'll probably lean on Frank to tell us how to do that at some point, but I would just let Cindy have a vacation. She's been working hard on the audit and a lot of other things, but whatever you want to do, you're welcome to do. All right, any other conversation on that one? Yes, ma'am.
I would agree that since the charter does say that, we either need to follow the charter more closely or amend it just a little bit. And I really like the idea of the high-level presentation for the council, that we have a fairly good idea by mid-October. And whatever needs to be changed a little bit, amended, then we've got that wiggle room in there. But I think the earlier, the better. So I like the timeline of mid-October to November 1st. I think that is reasonable, since the city charter says 90 days, and it has to be, we have to approve a budget actually by December 31st. So 90 days is the months of October, November, and December. So if we could have something in mid-October, like you said, a high-level preliminary budget, I think that would be extremely advantageous.
Just one other comment. Yeah, like Meg, Councilmember Avery said, not later than 90 days prior to the beginning of each fiscal year. I mean, I don't know if looking at Cindy's budget and schedule line items and things that she prepares, 60 days prior would kind of give us November and December, kind of that high level, with the goal of having it mid-October. So that's still in line, that would put us in line if we wanted to look at that at the next, come August, once she has a vacation. So this is not pressing, so, okay.
And I think we've given Paul some good direction to come back to us with some suggestions. All right, next for you, Josh.
Looking at the natural gas capital reserves, as we prepare to kind of upgrade our tap that's off of Buford Highway and PV, I would like to kind of open up a conversation into our current fee structure and our rates that we charge our gas customers. Not a very fun conversation. To me, it is important that our gas fund always stands strong and independent from the city tax revenue as a whole. And as we all know, inflation has hit all areas, and local governments are also affected 100%. So to me, to kind of ensure a continued high level of service and high level of safety marks that we have, it's kind of key that we take a look at our gas rates and service fees. So Troy was so gracious, I spoke to him today to show us some our comparison against City of Sugar Hill and other marketers in our area. So can I defer to Troy to kind of share data that he has for us?
Sure. This is information that's currently on our website. You can click on it and look at the data from our partner at the Gas Authority, but these are all the Atlanta Gas Light marketers that operate in the state of Georgia. And our 12-month rolling total for PSC determined amount of usage, which is at the top there, is 717 therms, is just over $500. Zoom up to Georgia Natural Gas is anywhere up to $1,000 to $2,000 a year for the same type of service. So we are very competitive when it comes to the marketers. That's not hard to achieve. We recognize that they do a lot more than we do from a marketing standpoint, so they spend money on Braves stadiums and other things that we're not in the market for, but you can see the distinct difference in the dollar amount. We also get a lot of calls from time to time, and I know Jane can echo this, that people ask why we can't offer like free gas in the summer, and it's not really free. So I think we have to do a good job of communicating and educating when it comes to what marketers end up sending out. So Atlanta Gas Light has a very large portion of the bill that goes on these. I've had in other properties, I've had True Natural Gas, I've had some of the others, and you get hit, even if you don't use 1 therm of gas, you get hit with $30 of charges from Atlanta Gas Light to these marketers. So I wanted to mention that. The next graph shows you our comparison against all the other municipal gas providers in the Gas Authority family. And over on the left, you'll see it's a really small number, but it's $519. And I don't have the other ones to tell you who they are. They're trying to kind of keep that information confidential, but you can see that we're bottom 2 there. We're neck and neck with number 1, and just say the city's name rhymes with Social Circle. But, we do a pretty good job of keeping our costs low, but, we do have some room to kind of keep up with a capital reserve budget that we want to have for the Transco surprises. And one of the other items that we're taking on this year is relocating the gas line for the highway widening. Those are all things that we do know about in advance, but it's not easy to accumulate hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're not prepared for it in the rate structure. So, yeah.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Troy. Comments? Yes, sir.
So let me follow up. So are you proposing a rate increase? Because we make $2 million a year profit that we skim off the gas system to pay for everything we built.
A greater conversation in regards to what is the future, not so much right now, but are we prepared for 10, 15, 20 years down the road in terms of capital improvements, where we sit now. No one wants to have a rate increase. I don't want to have a rate increase. I pay natural gas. I think we probably speak for everyone up here. No one wants a rate increase, but are we prepared as a city to make sure that our gas utility is prepared for whatever comes at it? And for it to stand alone outside of our city tax revenue.
Yeah, so I would suggest going about that a different way. Take the debt burden off the gas system that wasn't caused by the gas system, and there's plenty of money there to pay for any sort of reserves that the gas system may need. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, and I apologize, but that was a lot of words, and I'm not exactly sure I understand what you said, but I appreciate it.
Happy to clarify if you'd like.
You're welcome to try.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, we make $2 million profit off the gas system each year, is that not correct?
Yeah, there is a transfer from the gas fund to the general fund of about $2
$2 million. Right, and we use that to pay the debt service on the gym, the theater, the commercial space, and the new parking deck, correct?
I don't think it goes towards the new parking deck. I think we
Okay.
did assign some of the resources for the east.
Okay.
I think that was considered similar to a franchise fee that has been longstanding in the policies and procedures previously, but
You lost me on that. What's a franchise fee?
we contemplate the transfer as comparable to a franchise fee. So like the insurance premium revenues that we get annually from the insurance carrier, which is over $1 million. We have franchise fees from other utilities that are
Or
very
using
similar.
right away?
For use in the right-of-way. So we're treating it like a business, and so that was the contemplated use of some of those funds.
Yes, sir, Paul?
When we were contemplating building the E-Center, we had a very open and, I thought, stimulating discussion about the gas system and revenues being transferred from the gas system to the general fund for the purposes of debt service. And we had that discussion also with the rating agencies. In many cases, transferring money out of a enterprise is frowned upon, but cities do it all over the state with those who operate gas systems and those who operate electric systems. But Standard & Poor's was very encouraging and understood our financial structure when we proposed it to them, that the E-Center will help build meters. So they're investing in the city as well, and the gas system benefits from that by increased meters. And we've substantially expanded the number of meters we have in the state as a result of the E-Center. It's had a halo effect. And so that's why we did that. The transfer from the gas fund to the general fund has been around for years. It was transferred before to help supplement the general fund operating budget. Ours is to not supplement it for operating, but to supplement it for our debt service. So just wanted to update you on that.
Got it. Yes, Taylor?
I appreciate Josh bringing this up to us because I agree with him that funding our capital reserve, which is really, I think, at the heart of the discussion here, how that money has been transferred that's a committed obligation that we have. So what we're really talking about is how do we deal with the future capital reserve if there is a shortfall. I don't know that there is. That's a question for staff to answer. If there is a shortfall in the capital reserve, and what do we need to do to satisfy that shortfall if there is one? The transfers from the utilities to the general fund is typical of pretty much every city that has a utility in the entire state. That's how Beaufort manages to keep its millage rate so incredibly low, beyond just the commercial that it's built, but their gas system is a very profitable center for them that they use to supplement their millage rate to keep it so low. Lawrenceville has power, gas, waste management, water. They sold their water system, so but they have gas, electricity, and waste management that they have as services that also supplement their general fund that they transfer money from as well. And it's a huge profit center for the city of Lawrenceville. So the fact of the matter is that we are so low compared to both the free market and the municipal market that I think looking at our shortfall is a smart thing to do, and if there is one, addressing it and how we address it is probably something that's more important once we know the number versus speculation at this point. So I guess I'm with Josh here. If we could just get, what is that number, and what would that mean for us from a decision-making standpoint? Do we look at a rate increase? Do we restructure something to offset that? How do we do that? That would be I think that's the ask.
Paul brought up a good point regarding meters in the e-center. Is there a way that you could get that data for us when we come back to this conversation of meters pre-groundbreaking e-center versus where we stand now and kind of that increase over the years since then? Just for some historical context at that point.
Meg?
Yes, I would like to say I would agree that I would not want to see a rate hike in the service fee. Currently, the service fee is $17 a month. We have a little over 12,000 customers on the gas system. So if you just take a round number like 12,000, that means just in service fees, we are making $204,000 a month just for service fees. And that works out to $2,448,000 a year. So, and that's not the therms, that's just service fees. So I would really hate to see the charge go up for that.
All right, I appreciate it. Any other comments? I'm going to rely on Troy to kind of maybe correct us on the math that's been thrown out, because I'm not sure if that's right, but all right, let's move on. We'll move on to golf carts in the city.
No, back to me, it looks like. I do want to start off this conversation by saying I do not own a golf cart. I do not. I've heard Alvin is looking. He's in the market. But as I drive around our city, and of course cities close by, you start seeing more and more golf carts, low-speed vehicles, I think is how the state defines them, LSVs, and kind of have an open conversation here. As of right now, we do not have any ordinance, yes or no, in regards to regulating golf carts. How it stands now is the state has regulation, but that kind of puts us at a prohibited standpoint. Is that correct, Frank, of we have nothing?
Right. The state law authorizes the city to adopt an ordinance that allows personal transportation vehicles, and then when it adopts the ordinance, it's supposed to designate the roads on which these, as they call them, PTVs can operate along with normal, what you would think of as regular motor vehicles. So you designate which roadways they can be operated on and set any rules or regulations related to those. Certain things are preempted by state law that talks about what defines the vehicles, and that they have to have certain safety equipment and that kind of stuff. But yes, in order for those vehicles to be operated on city streets, you're supposed to have an ordinance that says they're to be operated. You're supposed to post signs. There's signage requirements. You have to post them notifying people when they come into jurisdictions that these vehicles are allowed on the roadway, and so they need to be looking out for those vehicles from a safety standpoint.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Frank. I think it's important for us to go ahead and have a conversation. I'm seeing them in the city, kind of a little bit more and more. That's okay. I can't really say I'm pro or against golf cart completely, but would like to make sure that we are in line of, do we need to go ahead and form that ordinance, or do we need to go ahead and start enforcing, saying, hey, we are not going to allow golf carts in our city. I think we need to make that stance sooner rather than later, before we've got 40 to 50 residents that live within a mile having golf carts, and it becomes an issue that now all of a sudden we have now regulated golf carts. So
I saw Meg reaching for her button. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say it was interesting this came up because I just recently heard from a resident who was surprised and a little disappointed when she was at Goldmine Park, that there was someone using a golf cart on the path at Goldmine Park. So, you know, that is something to consider as well. And I don't know what the state says about golf carts, but I would assume that the person that is operating a golf cart must also be in possession of a driver's license? Okay, good.
That is what state law says. State law provides what I'll call the Peachtree City exemption. State law provides an exemption that if you allowed golf carts before 2012, and your ordinance allowed people who did not have a valid driver's license to operate a golf cart under your ordinance prior to 2012, then they don't have to have a driver's license. So there's a Peachtree City exemption that allows folks without a driver's license to continue to operate them in Peachtree City. There may have been other cities that had ordinances in 2012, but there would be very few. In Sugar Hill, since you did not have an ordinance prior to 2012, they would be required to have a driver's license in order to operate a golf cart on roadways.
Gary?
So just a question there to follow up. Does that ordinance say anything about dedicated pathways? My understanding, and I could be wrong, is I thought Peachtree City was somewhat designed around that and had specific dedicated pathways for golf carts, not just public streets.
It kind of melds them together, actually, because Peachtree City also had to, and the state had to grapple with the question of, because Peachtree City allows golf carts on pathways, can someone operating a golf cart on that pathway be charged with and convicted of driving under the influence? And the ultimate answer to that question was yes.
All right, so just one comment, because we don't allow golf carts on the greenway. So if somebody's on the greenway, they're doing it, and they're not supposed to be doing it. If someone saw a golf cart at Goldmine Park, that's very possible because, as Josh said, there are people that drive golf carts all over the city currently. So not really an issue with Goldmine Park, and I don't think we would ever allow golf carts on the greenway because we've got mothers with babies and strollers and walkers and this and that. So that's not anything that I would be worried about or concerned about. Josh, what do you want us to do?
I think open conversation here of is this something that we need to ask Frank to formulate a draft ordinance at this point for or against golf carts? I think that's really the question at the table of what kind of direction we should give, and if it's something that we can't come to a consensus tonight, we can, of course, push it off to another work session. But I think a valid conversation, like I said, as we are seeing more and more golf carts, I see them all the time in Beaufort. I see a few here in Sugar Hill. I think it's just going to become more and more prevalent as cars get more expensive. It's easier to get a golf cart if you're expecting to stay around your house and you can get to a lot of places. I think people are looking at those different options. So, yeah.
And I might, if I may, I think one component of this is maybe talking to our marshals and maybe the Gwinnett County Police Department as well, just about how they might, if we were to allow golf carts, how that might impact them. Maybe that might need to be an important part of the conversation as well. Not asking Frank to do that, something that we would need to do maybe through the marshal's office. But anybody? Yes, Paul.
Frank, PTVs who operate on designated city streets, they're not allowed on sidewalks, would require them to have brake lights, headlights, any other particular adaptation of a normal golf cart?
Yeah, so the state law requires that there's a list of 10 items, it looks like, that the state law requires them to be equipped with. That includes headlamps, tail lamps, a horn, a rear view mirror, some other things. But that is set out by state law, and that is not something we could alter if you wanted to consider an ordinance. But yes.
Love
right, Taylor, sorry to pass on you a few times.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you, Mayor. I think right now, it's probably not, we don't have to draft an ordinance against it because it's already against the code. So we'd only have to draft an ordinance if we wanted to permit them, which I'm fine with because I know that there's a number of people in our community that use them. I think going ahead and figuring out, because they are being used, and we can say it's against the law, but they're going to continue to be used, and I don't know that there's a good way to enforce that, given that they're mostly traveling on interior subdivision streets, and would only be through a happenstance of a marshal doing a patrol, would they ever encounter that? And I don't think many people are in the habit of calling the police on their neighbors over a golf cart that's behaving, I would say, generally within the rules of the road. So I would suggest that we do come up with an ordinance to help codify the use of them. I guess I have some questions about how they get registered or if they're registered. And we still would have an enforcement obligation if we're going to put it in place. We got an enforcement obligation as it is now because they're violating the city's code. But I think giving some permission to use them on the city streets and letting folks get to our parks and other things that are nearby is a good idea. And quite frankly, I think it's a great way to allow folks to get around outside of a vehicle. It's easier on any number of things if they can do that. We have folks in our neighborhood, there's probably 20, 30 golf carts down at our pool on many nights, especially on swim meet nights, because there is no parking, not enough parking, so people take golf carts. That's a big deal in many of our neighborhoods that have swimming pools. So I think it's a good idea to go ahead and find some sort of ordinance that would allow for a reasonable use of golf carts on city streets. That's my opinion.
And if you go to Sparks this week, you'll see some golf carts there as well. So people are getting around in them currently. And I'm kind of indifferent on it, but I'm certainly not opposed. Like Taylor, I know of people that have golf carts, and there's some people in my neighborhood. Some people are good about staying in the neighborhood, but others are not good about it. So I'm open to anything.
I think you kind of really hit on.
I think one of the keys is that we're keeping them off the greenway. I don't think that's something, even if we proceed, we don't want that at all, so.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Do we look to get some signage on the greenway, kind of identifying that there aren't allowed,
There is some signage, I believe,
There is
at
signage
the
on it?
entrances, and there's one downtown here at the beginning of the,
Okay.
I don't know how frequent they are, but I do see them, yeah.
The rule sign states no unauthorized vehicles are allowed on the street.
Might need to be more clarified than calling out specifically.
Yeah, I've never seen a golf cart on the greenway, and I walk it all the time, so I'm not really sure it's a problem, but if we need to clarify it, that's fine as well, yeah. Yes.
And I do think that it might be helpful to clarify what an authorized versus unauthorized vehicle is, especially with the advent of e-bikes and scooters and other things. If that is an authorized or an unauthorized vehicle, we might need to be a little more clear on what that definition of that is. And I think that probably would help a lot of folks, because I know a lot of folks have e-bikes. I don't know if those, I think we have a speed limit or some sort of speed restriction on the greenway, even for pedal bikes. I don't think you're supposed to be going over, and I don't know the number, if it's 15 or 20 miles an hour. I don't know what it is, but e-bikes can certainly get up to 30, 40 miles an hour, so it may be something that we clarify on the sign to help folks who are now buying e-bikes and scooters, electric scooters, to help them understand they shouldn't or can be on there, as the
And
case may be.
I think that's all good, but there's a cost to all those signs that we have already put up, and so if it's not a problem, let's not make it a problem. But so I'm just throwing out some suggestions. So those signs are relatively new, and again, I don't see a whole lot of problem on the greenway currently. But maybe if we change the code and we allow and we specifically allow golf carts, maybe that might change the dynamic a little bit, but, sorry, I just wanted to speak up on that, so.
And Mayor, I think it could be something as simple as something in our code as opposed to changing the signs, just so that it's clear to folks. I don't think we have to actually make even a sign change if we just clarify what that means in our code or whatever an authorized vehicle is, because I think it is confusing to citizens to not know what that means.
All right, all good points, all good questions. What direction do we want to give the team as far as golf court ordinance is concerned?
I mean, possibly a draft of what an ordinance would even look like.
Okay.
Just to see what that would even entail, essentially.
Is that okay with everybody? All right. I think we've given direction. Thank you, Josh. And next up is tuition reimbursement for our city employees.
Is that back to me?
Yes, sir.
Employee benefits and retention are top of mind for me currently, and of course in our economy, and thinking kind of adding to our already robust benefit package that we offer will kind of make our city more attractive to employees if we look at a tuition reimbursement. That's something that the county offers currently. Some other municipal governments in our county also offer, and kind of that program would be intended to encourage and help our employees expand their educational backgrounds and become more proficient in their jobs. Would cover tuition costs, books, mandatory fees. Those are kind of the things that Gwinnett County and other municipal governments currently offer. Would like to see kind of an emphasis on, if we go this route, an emphasis on GED programs, trade, technical skills that we are either in dire need of at our Public Works Department, or something that is more practical if we're kind of getting a vendor or a trade in routinely, if that's something that we could have in-house, kind of take care of it ourselves and kind of realize some return on investment from that technical skill that person has accomplished. Either looking at a bachelor and post-grad program as well to kind of help our city staff have more opportunities here for growth internally, and then also build that pipeline of future leaders. I know I've said this once, I'll say it again. No one goes to school and says, I am excited to go work in municipal government. No one says, I am going to go work for the city of Social Circle. Maybe Paul does, but he's the checkered past. So, but no one does that. You're not looking at senior nights and they're saying, I'm going to go work for the state of Georgia and I'm going to go work for Social Circle. So they're not doing that. So whatever we can do to kind of retain our employees and then want to be here and then want to be excited to work for our city, I think that's important. And of course, looking at clawbacks, penalties, if they leave their job early, maybe they found another opportunity and we've invested in them. I think there should be some sort of penalty to that if we've invested in them and they decide that they're no longer a great fit here for the city. So kind of opens a conversation up. I would love to look at a policy. I know we're gonna have to look at budget and things like that of what all this would entail, but to see if we could add something like this or start small into our benefit package in hopes of retention efforts here for our city staff and recruiting.
And I might defer to Jane because I call her the mama bear of all of our city employees, and she does a great job looking after our employees. But any thoughts on that? Maybe even at the GED level, as maybe a start or something.
We have done some research in the past about some of the programs in the cities around us and what they offer. So we do have some data and research on that, and which ones offer what, and if they require a payback and that sort of thing. A GED for the public works and a trade type degree, I think, would be really helpful for them. And postgraduate is just, or the graduate degree is just an extra advancement and to fill voids that might come about for professionals.
And I didn't realize this, but I guess we do have employees that don't even have a high school diploma. So
We did.
yeah, got it. And Jane would know that. Any questions or thoughts from anybody else on? I think maybe maybe what we're just asking is maybe Jane to do maybe take the research that you've done and maybe dig a little deeper and come back to us at some point in time if you have any thoughts or suggestions. Is that okay? Josh? All right. Anything else from anybody on that one? Josh, thank you for the 4 items. All right, we will now move on to the city manager discussions and updates. Paul?
This is under my email that you
You have a question?
Yes, sir.
Will we get a copy of it to review? I'd like to be able to review it before they come so we can ask whatever questions we may have in it.
They're on vacation this week, because the whole firm is gone for this week, but I can see if I can get, let me see what I can get.
Okay.
And, if I can get something that they feel comfortable with, is a true representation of what they're going to present, then we'll send it to you. But I don't want you to see something and something else changes that night.
I'd rather have something that they adjust when they're here than nothing at all and not be able to ask any intelligent questions on it.
And I'm certainly, think there could be questions, but really it's either qualified or unqualified. There really isn't a whole lot that you can, you can't change anything on it, to be honest with you, because it's an independent audit. And it's not even something that's required to be adopted by city council, but we've had a tradition of doing that for a while. So yeah, it'd be great for everybody to see it, to have questions, but it's really something that we're going to pass along to the Department of Community Affairs.
In the part of audits. And I'm not in a position to say whether it be a qualified audit or an unqualified audit. Unqualified is the term we want.
Yeah.
I'm pretty, I think that's probably the direction they go. But there's things I have to say.
Yeah, it's not a budget, it's an audit.
Right, but that's
Yeah.
that's the representation of the city's financial position, and we need.
Absolutely, and if it says unqualified, then that's what we want.
Right.
Right.
But those are really just terms for the state to approve or not approve. We still need to know what's in there, just, when we're talking about other things.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
All right.
I'm just stating the facts about it. Got it? Meg?
Paul, did I hear you correctly to say that we have gotten an extension for the audit? Because I know it was due by June 30th, and it had been discussed before it would be ready by then, but you just mentioned extension.
We told them it's going to be maybe a week late, so that we don't need an extension. It's just, unfortunately, we got a
Yeah. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, next, public safety update.
Andy, thank you so much. I had just asked Jane tonight if I could have a printout of this plan, so this is great, thank you.
All right, so you said we were going to talk about this in August? Okay.
Okay. Not entirely, but I will. That slide, and I think we had a couple of questions, and I may have announced that Gwinnett County had started the process of evaluating a couple of streets in Frontier Forest for speed hump program. They were Frontier Drive and Roberts Drive. I just heard back from the staff at Gwinnett County that Frontier Drive did not qualify based on the speed data they had collected. Roberts Drive did, and so they'll be entering the petition process for Roberts Drive. Ironically, Roberts Drive has a significantly higher number of multi-way stops than Frontier Drive. Think about that for a moment. What typically happens from a driver behavior standpoint is you have stops that you don't want to slow down for, so you make up in the straightaways. So that makes sense to me from just an intuitive philosophical standpoint. And then one other recent request that came in was Grand Magnolia Way, that is in the Lanier Park, no, Laurel Park subdivision. And so that was one that came to Gwinnett County. They'll be taking a look at that. I think they'll do the data collection probably after school gets back into session, and then they'll be letting us know about the results there.
Question on that one, or follow-up?
Yes, sir.
So Grand Magnolia is the main drive in Laurel Park, which is off of Swanee Dam Road.
It's really steep.
Yeah, and it's been turned down before because the county said cars on the ground are better than cars on the air. And you put those speed humps and coming down the hill like that, I don't see any way that's going to be allowed there. So maybe there's something else we can do to control speed there, but I don't think that one's going to pass.
There used to be like some grade language in their language.
Yeah,
And I think it was rejected in my own neighborhood, Glen Level Drive, many, many years ago. But I know we've put the speed detection cameras that flash up the
Brad
speed
McNulty.
that people are going, and I know we did that for a while and collected data, and so I get it. I'm not a big fan of speed humps. I'm just gonna say it. And I had a lot of people complain to me about the speed humps on Whitehead Road, but I've also had a lot of people that believe it's changed things on Whitehead Road. I don't have any data one way or the other to suggest that, but the great thing about this is it's a petition process, and so it's kind of out of our hands. And so even though I have an opinion about it, it's really up to the people in the area to decide what they want to do and not do. So what were you going to suggest on this that we...
It was an update
Okay.
by one of the council members, and I will say that I probably use the term traffic calming when we're talking about other projects, because there are other measures other than speed humps, and I probably would suggest that at some point in the future, we ought to approach the county about other solutions other than speed humps. Any number of measures, whatever those are.
Thank you, Troy. Sorry to interrupt. Yes, sir, next.
Just a quick construction update. We have substantially completed the improvements to the Alton Tucker Boulevard realignment project. The intersection in the image of the realigned West Broad and Alton Tucker will be the subject of the stamped asphalt installation probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We do have some punch list items we're going over with the contractor at the raised crosswalk, at some other locations in their scope. We did have to end up resurfacing the entire intersection of Highway 20 at the request of Georgia DOT. And one other quick update, unless there are some questions about the other project. It was the intersection of First Avenue, Lanier, Railroad Avenue at the railroad crossing. We did restripe that crossing restripe the center line with thermoplastic and raised pavement markers, and it'll help visually determine where the center line is for those that are using that crossing. And I believe the edge line had already been striped, but next part of that is the street lighting had been installed at the location, so I've not been able to verify that the lights are functioning or their color temperature, but I plan to do that if the meeting goes late enough tonight. I wanted to mention that. The other question that came up about this location was the change in the traffic control at the railroad crossing. I was very surprised, I think, when I came to Sugar Hill that there was a stop condition as you cross the railroad track coming to east. Just because typically that is not the design of a railroad crossing. You want the cars crossing the railroad to move out of the intersection of the rail crossing. So that is actually what was installed. I believe the railroad contracted with an installer to get those changed out. And so I believe that is the currently approved standard, which is based on Federal Highway Administration, so you're welcome to look at that up. But we're still checking with the railroad on the installation of those signs. So on Railroad Avenue and Atlanta Road, you will see a yellow warning sign that says traffic from the left doesn't stop. Just a reminder that people need to clear the railroad track when they're coming through that area.
Yes, sir. Josh?
Troy, while I appreciate the railroad spirit in aligning to the manual on uniform traffic control devices, the 11th edition, it has been, and that is an awful intersection. We have talked that intersection at length, and it was a surprise to me. I think it's a surprise to everyone as they're coming through there. I'm not sure. I know we're probably going to have to, unfortunately, live with it for a little while until we get an answer, and we might have to live with it forever. But is there a way to move some of those electronic signs that we used over for the new four-way stop at Chile over there, just saying, hey, we've got a new traffic pattern, because we really do, and we might not have a lot of runway on one side versus the other, but just, I mean, because I've already gotten a few emails from folks that ride bikes in the city, and that's kind of a concern for them of, if they're riding through the intersection, they should stop anyway, but now they're really going to have to stop and pay attention to what's going on, which is important. But just kind of food for thought there of, it's already a dangerous intersection. I get the spirit of why that is important not to stop. But like you said, it's been like that. It's been like that ever since I can remember over there. So not the greatest intersection, but just let people know, hey, something has changed, because I'm not sure people are reading the yellow signs underneath the stop signs as of right now.
Thank you, Josh. Anything else, Troy?
Just very quickly, the other intersection south of there at Chile, North Price, the four-way stop has been installed, striping has been installed, so that one is up and running. This was one location we talked about, a future project to install a roundabout that will contemplate in a future SPLOST issue. So we kind of know what's involved with it. There will be some right-of-way acquisition, regulator station will need, and some other things associated with it. So we have some time to work on that and to pull that together.
Troy, are y'all still using the warning signs that, Josh, are y'all still using that at that intersection? How long will they?
I don't recall seeing them today when I drove through there, but they were the counties.
Okay.
Probably use them this summer up at the other location.
Okay.
As I mentioned, I updated the street lighting, and we did restripe First Avenue as well. The only other update I want to mention is the paving work is nearing completion in Frontier Forest. And as a part of that project, we did add new stop signs, replace some of the older stop signs in the neighborhood. I don't believe we got to the street name signs, but we're also providing some more replacement signs eventually for street names.
I've got a question for you, if you don't mind. I noticed today that they were changing out some of the light heads here in the parking lot.
That was also an update. Didn't make it to the presentation, but the Georgia Power is replacing all of the older lighting to the LEDs that they hadn't gotten to previously. I think they went through a series of upgrades about 4 or 5 years ago. Tim, do you remember how long ago that LED upgrade project was? So they're going through the rest of them, and they are upgrading all of the old lights that they don't have supplies to replace and fix with the LEDs. So that is one of the areas they were tackling, along with some of the other locations downtown.
Okay.
I did confirm that they were proposed to be 3,000 K color temperature, so.
I thought Joshua would like to know that, so that's why I asked about it.
So Once I see them on, I'll be able to tell whether they're 3,000.
Sounds good. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Paul, you got anything else? All right, so I do know that when, yes, sir, of course.
Troy, in Frontier Forest, I know the building that was approved, I guess, about a year and a half right there on Wages Way and Hidden Circle is coming to completion. It looks like we've had to do, I'm not sure if it was us or the actual builder, or the natural gas. They've ripped up the sidewalk. Are they planning to replace the sidewalk at their expense? Okay. Is there a way, can we look at sidewalks going forward in Frontier Forest and I think a lot of our older subdivisions that don't have curbing? A lot of them are kind of cracking and just kind of having a plan. I'm not saying go out and just get one, fix one. Have almost a plan of how we're doing the asphalt of, hey, we're going to do X amount, just to kind of get all those issues fixed throughout the city. I don't think there's many of them, but batch them out at one time, essentially. So, okay, thank you.
All right. We do have a need for executive session. There's one personnel matter that we need to discuss, and then there are two real estate items and their updates from previous conversation. I don't think it'll take very long, and do you think we'll have any action on anything afterwards? Okay. All right. So is there a motion to go into executive session?
Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss real estate, personnel, or legal matters.
Okay, I have a motion to go into executive session to talk about real estate and personnel matters. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, have a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, we're going to go in. We'll come back out when we're done. All right, we are back from executive session. We discussed one real estate and one personnel matter, but we have no action to take outside of executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn our July work session?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Sorry, I have a motion from Alvin, a second from Gary. I should call out the names. All those in favor of adjourning, please raise your right hand. All right, we are adjourned, and we'll see you next Monday.